Welcome back to What's in My Drawers Golf Discussion with Jim McCleary, Waverly, Ohio, McGolf Custom Clubs. We started the golf discussion, or What's in My Drawers, because old club makers and club fitters are tremendous pack rats. And we started out with all the stuff that I was holding in my drawers, and it's tend to evolve since this COVID thing has kind of outlasted what everybody thought. And now we're into golf discussions, talking about fittings, repairs, opinions, and anything that has to do with golf from around the world. So let's get started and throw some tremendous Masters congratulations to DJ, right? Dustin Johnson. And a little bit of I did that. And of course, I do carry Wilson, and I just opened the box for this bad boy today. And Wilson does pretty good with hats, I have to say. It's a very comfortable hat. It's what they call a snap fit, and it's got a little Velcro in the back, but it's got you got the shield on one side, on both sides. So not a bad. It's a good little fitting hat. So, and it fits my big head, so we're right there. So well done, DJ. Outstretched the field, set that record at 20, I believe it was 20 under. And just was, the man could not miss, right? The man could not miss. And in typical news, only DJ could outshine Tiger. Tiger makes more news losing or shooting horrible than most people come in second place. And he did shoot the, a 10 on number 3, or a par 3, number 12. And, yeah, I don't think anybody wants to revisit that, but he turned around and pulled it right back to show what kind of player he truly is, in birding a lot of holes right square after. So not bad. And the low amateur Ogletree, I mean, he's pretty good in his own right. So well done to everybody. I thought the Masters actually went off. If you guys watched any of it, the place was in phenomenal condition. It probably wasn't as brilliant as it would be in April, but it was in good shape nevertheless. All righty. So in tradition, what did I do? What do I have going on this week? And this one, I'll have to see where Mrs. McGolf has us going. But I have a set of Mizuno, what are these? These are the Mizuno Pros forged, Mizuno Pro forged. And the only reason why I'm waiting on these is I'm waiting on 2. I had to do a combo set earlier, and so I'm missing 2 heads. They're coming in, but I've got all the rest of them done using some KBS shafts. They're at 105s in the R. They're going to be pretty nice when they're all said and done. And then some launch pads, which is kind of funny that I've got this hat, right? You can't see it, so there's the hat. And so the launch pads are a massively forgiving club, and with super amounts of sole and very strong, some offset. It's been a surprising winner for them this year, and as it turns out, they end up looking like that. I used the black 5/8 inch ferrules, and they turned out really, really well. Made these were an inch long. Hopefully Mrs. McGolf gets on there and she'll tell us where these are going. And there's another set of them where you can see that the 4 sole is actually a lot wider than the 8 sole, the 9, or the pitching wedge. But they turned out very, very well. The heads were very much, the weights were on just like they were supposed to be. The lofts were right on there where they're supposed to be. Line angles need a little help, but that's why I have a bending machine. And then we put some Lambkin, their version of the cross lines, or that is their cross line, the Lambkin grip. And so we talk about this in some sizing, that the 105s that I put in here in stiff are 600 butts, but these are 580. So they went out a little bit bigger, and I actually put another roll of tape underneath of it to make them bigger still, because the guy is 1 inch long, certainly has to have bigger hands. And then the KBS, the 105s in the stiff, and it ended up right down the middle of the stiff range. So it worked out. It worked out pretty good. These things just turned out really, really well. I'm real happy. And then last but not least, and I'm sure you guys are all waiting to see this one, the last brisket of the year. Most likely because it's going to get down into the 30s and it just won't pay to be making brisket. But this one was a full brisket, had the point and had the flat. Gave my son some, gave my dad some. I had some. Mrs. McGolf had some. And this is what's left. So it was a fairly large cut of meat. So there we go. So that's all it is. Now, another thing, it seems to be a Wilson day since I got everything in there. They sent me a set of the 2-ball packs. So what happens when we go through a fitting here at McGolf, I try to give a comparable set of golf balls that might work for them. Now, it's not, it could come close. And the Duo Soft Plus is actually a really nice golf ball, even for I won't say super high swing speed, but you can get away with hitting these unless you're a really high spin guy. You may not like them, but if you're a guy like me, you guys have seen me swing, I can play these golf balls. Not bad at all. And my other one is my Callaway Chrome Softs. And depending on where they fall, typically I try to give a 2-ball pack to the player, and sometimes one of each if they're on the cusp, in order to check it out. So that's where we're at with it. And for those getting on Facebook, hopefully we're running. I kind of cheated the system. They don't like us. I had the wrong time in, and when I put it in there, they didn't like it, so I gave them a false time and then started anyway. So there it is. So, okay, guys, around the world, the weather's dropped out, unlike last week when we were talking about great weather. Storm rolled through. I'm going to assume it was from one of the hurricanes that would hit into Florida. And the temperature's dropping out of the bottom. It's supposed to be into the 30s down here. I don't know where you're going to get, but, yeah, it's coming, right? So indoors we go. So let's go see. While I'm thinking about it, last week I did not put out a video. Basically, just sat back and recovered. This week, tomorrow at 7:00, there is one. I'm continuing the tech in a golf club. Does it work? And this time I did it with irons. And since we seem to be a kind of an international group, I used a couple of clubs that were my favorites. And one was an Orca Forged. For you guys over in the UK, might recognize Orca. I don't know what kind of clout they carry over there, but it's a nice club and it's very, very consistent. And I got a set of those and I really, really like them. Well, and then all of a sudden everything started getting stronger and they just got outdistanced. However, the performance was still there. And I compared it against a Callaway. And so you guys have to see how it turns out. I mean, obviously the Callaway is going to be longer, but there's some other things involved with picking golf clubs. And that's what I tried to get on. It wasn't a who's better thing. It was, does tech help? That was the thing I really tried to impress upon. So let's take a look and see what we got in there today. All the way to the top. Henry. Jim, I got a little too hot with my torch. Anything I can do, burn marks on the iron hosels. Yes, Henry, you can. Actually, that's not uncommon, especially when it happens a lot to pings because they're kind of a press fit in along with being glued, and they're a real tight fit. And what we're talking about, let's see, I did it in a video not too long ago, and it was Barkeeper's Friend, right? You can get something in the way of Barkeeper's Friend. It'll take that stuff right off. Or anything along that lines. I think it was in the last video or the one before that, somebody else was talking about other stuff that they used. You can do it that way. Now, if you have a setup like I do, and you have the wavy wheel, right? If you have the wavy wheel with the nylon wheel on it, just hit it just ever so gingerly, because we're going to assume it's chrome and not painted. And it ought to take the thing right off. You'll be all right. On irons, that's good. On woods, that's a way more trickier situation. You've got to really be gentle, and sometimes you just don't win on that one. All right. Doug from Florida checking in. Thank you, sir, all the way down there. Hopefully you guys are staying safe with all the, what is it? You're in, was it ETA? ETA? Or is that, or where are we at? We're using the Greek alphabet now, right? Time to build some clubs. You better believe it, man. Jack's checking in from Lombard. Well done, sir. Hopefully it's not snowing yet up there. And there's my buddy Matt. Shot 9 holes, 38 with the new grips. Good. How did you like it? Now that you've had a chance to tell us what you think, Matt. So I'm going to tell. So if you guys didn't see it last week, Matt came down, and this makes his like 4th trip or 5th trip. And everyone now I get to see his family, and they're going to be some good kids when they get older. My goodness. And the whole family is outstanding. Anyway, he put in some. So everybody asked. This is a perfect example. He had some jumbo grips and went to jumbo max, slightly larger grips, and because he's a bigger guy, has bigger hands, and everybody asked me if he can do it. So I know he's listening. Matt, you can tell us what you think about it when you go from there. And the other part was he brought down a fairway wood that he's been using forever, and he's like, I just can't hit it. I just can't hit it. I don't know why, because he was striping it before, and all of a sudden, and I looked at it, and it's the first time I've seen this one in a while, and I put a measuring stick on it, and it was, I'm going to show you, just kind of use a piece of paper and stuff. But anyway, I took his fairway wood, not necessarily an iron, and I went, and I just like, well, let's see what this is all about. So I held it up like this, and I put that on there, and I used a straight edge on a wood, all right? And when you're on a wood, a straight edge ought to have some light on both ends, the top and the bottom. And this thing did not have any light, so he caved in the face. So I just gave him we switched out heads, and good. So there you go. All right. He wants to know, can you talk about taper and putter grips? Matt, you always ask the good questions. Okay, so we saw Dustin Johnson using Super Stroke. And Super Stroke has typically been famous for that straight up and down grip, mostly round. But if you look, his was not that style. His was more of the flats, the smaller flat toe style, and so that has overtaken the, how should we say? That's overtaken the what would be a traditional grip, like you see Golf Bride was just recently put out with their corded grips. Gorgeous grips, but they tend to curve down to the bottom. And what that was is what we were doing, and this is me talking now. What happens is most people will either hold the putter like a baseball bat where you got 10 fingers on it, or they will hold it like they are doing it like they are holding their iron. All right. And when you do that, the parallel grip works really, really well. Now, when you go back out there and you go watch them, what'll happen is, if this is the way that you would hold your irons, this is the way that you would hold your putter. You basically reverse your grip. And that makes the bottom grip feel bigger. And so that's probably the reason why they taper. And it feels good to some folks if they like choking down. Maybe the thing's a little too big at the butt, and they like choking down. So in some cases, that's why that is. Some people just like the feel of a more traditional triangular shape with the big flat. So there we go with that one. Willard's in. How you doing, Willard? John's back from Pinehurst. Dude, I still say I got to get down there as soon as all this mass crap is done. I'm coming down. I want to see I really, really want to see the Golf Pride headquarters. Thank you, Travis. Oh, nice dogs. There's Jack checking in. Mr. King. Okay, so, I've put a few of these things on. They're really they're unique, and they say that, the wrist lock is basically, it's a much longer putter grip, and at the very end there's this extra knob, and it's supposed to go against your leading arm, and that gives you that wrist lock without having to get a wrist lock putter grip. I don't know. I'm not. I've done it for a few guys, and a few guys really like it, but I still think you probably need to manipulate the putter a little bit in order to make it sole, not necessarily toe to heel, but front to back. Because when you get it, I think that it forces you to bring it forward, which is what you want, but you don't want it jamming into the ground, so you need to get the putter bent the other way. So there's a little bit of an adjustment. Now, can you lock it? Yeah. And I would, if you're going to hold it there, you got to have that extra amount, or you're going to reach down further until that thing is up against your wrist. So you have to take that also into account. Now, I've done that for folks that didn't extend it, and they didn't seem to be impacted too much. So you really have to take a look, which would be a indicator that maybe that top of that grip might be not nearly as hollow as one would be led to believe. Space Coast, what are you doing, Al? George Dustin was the man this week. That is for shoes, right? And if you saw social media heating up really, really good, not only did he get a lot, but Paulina got a lot of she got a lot of love too with her Adidas outfit that she was also wearing. So if any of you guys are interested in that coat, there you go. There's John again. There's my man Phil. And we get this night every time I see you, get the night started. This is a little different one, bud. This is 12-year-old Belvini. And really, that's pretty good. All right. So is golf pretty much done, or are you guys of the sturdy stock over there still? Let's know. George wants to know, are the Cleveland, know what the HB turbos good for all handicaps? Well, I would say to an extent, yes. Okay, can all handicaps use them? The answer is yes. They're not geared towards the better player, to be sure. However, if your better player is a picker, I'm sorry, not the other way around. If the better player is a guy that tends to get a little bit heavy and maybe just too heavy, those things will work really, really, really well, and they'll get out there. Now, if he's a picker, probably not going to like them, and that's what the defining moment for a lot of those. Same goes with the launchers that I showed you earlier today. Those two are pretty much in the same category, and it's just basically what you like looking down upon, right? They both go through the same idea. The Clevelands are a little bit more, I would say, a little bit more hybrid-ish looking as a whole, where the Wilsons have that. They have a chrome piece where the iron is with the back on it, and it's in gray, so it doesn't stick out. So you really don't go to noticing it so much. So it's more, they try to make it go towards the iron, right? But both very, very good clubs, to be sure. Yeah, Jeff, that was me. I just, oh my gosh, I was thinking 1730, like I put out on all my thumbnails and whatnot, and I was thinking, oh yeah, 1730, just put it up there. And I came back, and normally it counts down to give me a minute's warning. And I'm like, what? It's not going down. I realized it was 7:30 p.m. versus 17:30 p.m. That's just where me being a bonehead. There's Aaron. Well, long time no see, man. Rancho Mirage after being out. So you missed, if you were over there, Aaron, were you there for all the fires and everything that was going on out there? Like my buddy that's from San Jose, or did you miss most of that? Let us know. There's Brendan. There we go. I read Freddie Couples changed clubs recently and got fitted with a TX shaft with 106 swing speed. Is the Tour X stiffer than X? Surely that sounds too stiff for a swing speed. And the answer to all your answer is yes. All right. The Tour X is typically stiffer than the regular X. And Freddie has been known for playing. He's got the big story around him where he was playing that ladies, I think it was a 5-wood maybe, and just absolutely killing it because his tempo is so smooth. Even at 106 miles per hour, it still wouldn't warrant even an X Flex warrant, and just swing speed. Now, I haven't seen Freddie Couples swing. I'm sure it hasn't changed dramatically, but because I'm sure he has this massively late release, that's where he's getting a lot of his getting a lot of the need for that. And what it'll do is it will hold his club open and he get a little bit more height going up there, and then that's the reason why you can he might be doing that. And it could be that it's a very light club in tour stiff, and that's what he thinks he might need. There's a whole lot going on with that one, but to see Freddie in a tour stiff is really kind of, it goes against the grain, but I can only imagine it has to do with his release. Joe from Leeds checking in, sir. Hope everything is going well with the lockdown. I hate to hear that for you guys, to be sure, but in this particular issue, I would say better safe than sorry. Camilio from Bogota. How are you, sir? Hopefully everything is going well in Bogota. Look at that. We're already around the horn, man. The UK, Scotland, Bogota, US, and a couple places. This is great. All right. Can you explain the difference between the current Pro V1 and the Pro V1X? Okay. So, in just about every instance, every golf ball manufacturer makes a standard ball and what they would be an X ball or a star ball or a whatever. So there's Chrome Soft X, TP5 X, I believe. You have the Pro V1, Pro V1X, and you have the like a Vice and a Vice Tour. All these things are out there. And the second ball, and you have the B330 and the B330S. Okay. And what that normally is made for is the X ball is made for the guy with slightly higher swing speed so that the spin will come down for them, right? Because the idea is that that higher swing speed is going to compress that ball just ever so slightly more and give you equivalent spin as the Pro V would at a higher swing speed. Okay. Now that's true for just about everyone except for, if I recall correctly, everyone except for the Bridgestone, where this actually means more spin. Go figure. Everybody's got to be a little different. However, that's the difference. So if you like the Pro V and you're hitting it just fine, I just hit the Pro V1. If you're finding yourself spinning it a little bit more than you like, then you might try the 1X. Cornwall. Wow. All right. So I'm going to have to figure out where Cornwall is in relationship to where all the rest of the cities are, because I am terrible with locations. Okay. But thank you, Pooty. Pewee. Here we go. There you go. Look at that. We agree. Well, that's pretty good, man. So, Camilio? What are golf courses like in Bogota? That's always a heck of a question. Are they nice? Is it resort like? Is golf a thing in Bogota? I just don't know. Let us know. Here is a better ball than the Pro V. You know what? You're not the first person to tell me that, Eric. And it seems that, and again, I am not an expert on the Titleist golf ball line. However, if I understand it right, the AVX is supposed to be the next ball down, but it's only like a few bucks cheaper, and it's basically a Pro V and AVX clothing. Now, is that true? Don't know. James, I would say the answer to that is depending on the axis. Now we got asked that last week because the guys at TXG did that and found that the spinnier ball went. They said the spinnier ball went straighter. Now, when we talk about a lot of things in golf, we talk about these extremes, right? And if you hit a knuckleball, it's going to do just like a knuckleball, and you have no idea where it's going to go. Then the other part is if you spin one and the axis of the ball is straight up and down. Ooh, let's use this. Okay, so if the axis of the ball is straight up and down and it's spinning straight up and down and it goes straight up and it goes straight out, then yeah, what it'll do is it'll carry out, and what you don't want it to spin too much, because if it carries out and carries out too much, it just gets to a certain point and then it kind of just drops out of the sky. And if you spin it not enough, but it's still going there, it's just going to fly a little lower, and then it's going to come out, and it's going to tend to run. All right, high spinny balls tend to, just like on a wedge, they tend to stop and they tend not to roll out, where low spin tend to hit and bound forward, like you see in those, when those guys hit those drivers and they just keep going and going and going, that they're not downhill. It's because those guys have figured out how to maximize their trajectory and minimize their spin rate in order to get it where they want to go, and they tend to work the ball. Now, let's say that the thing is on an axis like that, left or right, doesn't matter, right? And now it starts spinning that way. Here we go. Sorry about that. And it's left or right. And if it starts spinning this direction, it's going to want to curve. So it's just like throwing a curveball for the guys, baseball players. Think of it as if you're throwing a curve and you're tucking it in here and you're throwing it, it's going to curve, but it's going to be more starting on the corner of the plate and bring it in. Whereas if you throw it out here and you let it and you release it, it's going to throw out more and it's going to curve in. So what spins more, right? And that's where we go with that. All right, my Sweden man, how are you, sir? Normally you started your indoor stuff, right? Like to see how that's going. Lorinda, thank you for coming back. That's been great. Okay, got a question. Why some shafts indicate butt trim only, as example, auto proto hybrid? Okay, well, so there are far and few between, Camilio. And the reason being is because they don't come with very much tip. That's the simple answer. Okay, and there's not very much butt trimming in the back, although they probably give you about that much. But the bottom line is that they have a profile that they want to project for a certain insertion depth into a certain head or into a certain hosel depth, and then you just trim it to come to the back. Now, there are other reasons why you see some shafts that are like that. Most likely they're taper tipped. Okay. And if you see taper tipped, obviously it's exactly what it is. It's a 355 tip section made to go in a 355 tip. And and as tip sections go, so if you cut out this much of it, now it's wider right there, right? It's also bigger. Let's see if I got a pen. Oh, no pen. I'm going to have to start bringing a pen and paper. So anyway, if you're on a tip and you go to cut, say, right off it here, right? So now it's like this at the back. So it's bigger and it doesn't insert all the way. So that's the reason why you trim from the back. And typically, they're also made in discrete lengths as well. From Wales. Too wet, huh? And I imagine that you guys get impacted by the hurricane season just like everybody else. And you guys are into the change of season too, I would imagine. Rick, how are you? Or Rick and Marcia, how are you? From Wilmington. Well done. Thank you. What does an iron which is too upright mean for impact on the face? I assume it is more toe side. More upright. Okay. This is a good one because I learned this from my friends in Italy that the folks in Europe look at lie angle a little bit differently than we do. Okay, so lie angle. Let's do this first. Lie angle. Lie angle is when this guy sits in the middle, right? When this club sits in the middle and you measure it, it is the measurement of the shaft. Let me go down a little lower. The measurement of the shaft in degrees this way. Okay. Now, when you go to bend the club flat, when you're bending the club flat from here, you're grabbing the shaft and you're pulling this way. All right. With the resultant that the club will want to go that way. If you bend it up, and that's upright, that would mean that the club, after changed, of course, that you're wanting like this. So if the club was too upright, you would see impacts in this particular area and it was hitting in this fashion. And then that, if it was too upright, you would flatten it, i.e. pull this thing down in order for it to flatten out so it was soling correctly. Hopefully that makes a lot of sense. Now, when we talk about it's funny, I have to go back and look, but just when we talk about that, they talk more about what in the head than they do the shaft. And it was really kind of an interesting idea. It was almost backwards. All right, here we go. Lorinda's got one for us. What do you say? How do you fit a driver length for a shorter than average height for golfers? Hosels aren't bendable, so lie angle is very, very upright. Gripping down to correct lie angle makes the shaft very, very short. You are correct. You are correct. And so there's a couple of things. You have to be on the search for a particular kind of model, maybe one that's a little flatter, right? You might look at a tour model first, or even the Mizuno heads tend to be a little flatter as a norm because that's the way that they do things. You could find that and start with that. However, what you're going to be relegated to is, yes, that you're going to have to go with a slightly shorter shaft. And I'm thinking that, you might actually be needing to use like a 3-wood length for your driver and just go shorter from there. Now, does that mean you got to cut off 2 or 3 inches on your fairway woods and stuff? No, just means you can probably start at 43 inches or even shorter, because I see your picture, and start from there, but start with something a little bit flatter. Okay. And sometimes that's the tour. Sometimes they just have that. Sometimes you can find some clubs that are still bendable. And the one that I know for certain is Wishon, right? Wishon has a club with a bendable hosel, the 919 TH. You can call them and have one bent flat. And that way you can use a slightly longer club. And you can do it with the fairway woods and the hybrids as well to match up. So that might be something to look for. There you go. Yeah, I hate that for you, Brian. I just do. Well, the new Wilson irons. I've seen them. I haven't had a chance to hit them. I have them ordered because we carry them. But what I can tell you from what I saw, I've seen the whole club and I've seen a couple of them, and they are super duper neat. I think that, the Wilson V6 was, when it first came out, kind of surprised people on the quality and the feel that the V6 had. Now, what they did is they kept it at traditional lengths because a lot of the staffers were using that. They would use them at the top end and then maybe blades in the, say, 8-9 wedge type situation. Now you might see them using a whole set. Well, now these other ones are just as nice. I think they're slightly, just ever so slightly larger. I've got the other one for comparison, so we'll take a look when we get them. And the look is cleaner, more modern, and I believe the lofts are just a tad stronger. So they're certainly going to be a club to be reckoned with. Now, as far as the utility iron, I saw it, but I'd have to. I'm going to kind of hold off my opinion until I get more to know about the utility iron. But to be sure, if it's in an iron and it's Wilson, it's going to be decent. It really, really is. Now, what's coming out that should capture a lot of people's attention is the D9. The D9 driver looks really, really sweet. It should come out and look really, really good. Should perform very, very well as well. It's not going to be what you saw Gary Woodland. It's not, because he got a tour model, but it's going to be a bonded head. And so that's going to be unique as well. So I think we're going to see a few more Wilson ideas out there. All right. Can a club be flowed in the jaws of a 3? Yeah. Actually, probably more so, Joe. The idea is, so when we talked about it, when I talk about flowing, so there's two ways of flowing. It's twanging in this direction and twanging in this direction. And if you're going to twang in this direction, you want the clamp to be in the direction of the twang, i.e., if it's like this, like that. If it's like this, then like that. And with the three lathe, it's just holding it even more steady to the point you can, if you have that, that means you could probably turn that whole thing and just turn the head until you find out where you want it to go. That ought to be really, really cool. Does shortening putter by an inch from 34 mess with the swing weight too much? No, it doesn't. Because, the idea here is it's not swing weight in a putter, although it's still swing weight. It is not the same method of which you would use by an iron, right? Because swing weight in a lot of head it's bringing you around from the swing, and that's where the weight comes around and helps you. From a putter is very meticulous and very manipulative and very straight around, and you probably find out that unless you're, well, it doesn't really matter. You probably end up liking it, particularly if it makes you more comfortable over the ball, right? If it makes you more comfortable over the ball and allows your hands to dangle out there easier, then actually you're going to swing it better. And that's where you can go with that. To the point, I'm a 33-inch putter guy, and 9 times out of 10, I am right at 33 inches. However, this latest time I've been kind of experimenting with 34 and just choking down the inch, like you say, because I have a Garson grip. And anyway, at the end of the Garson grip, it's a coloring, and it's got like a V pattern. At the end of the coloring is exactly 1 inch, so I know where to put my hands every time. All righty, Matt's going to tell us about him switching over to the Jumbo grips, or the Jumbo Max grips. You could go bigger. Yes, the acetone does take Sharpie off. One of the two most used tools in a club repairman's toolbox is the Sharpie, and then a acetone on a piece of paper towel to remove all the marks. That's what shines up the ferrules. That's what takes off all the marks. That's what cleans up the clubs, makes them nice, and can make them nice and clean and without grime on it. They can get slickery. This takes that stuff off. From Jersey, Mr. Travis, thank you, sir. Highest MOI putter, what would be one of your favorites? Well, let's see. High MOI. Okay, high MOI. So that would mean quite possibly the Well, the higher MOIs that I'm used to right now are they're in Callaway or the Odyssey right now would be the Bird of Prey and the Model 10. Now, I believe the Bird of Prey might be going away, but the Model 10 is getting a slight redesign, and it's going to look. It's the model from what I've seen because the rep showed up here. The Model 10 that's coming out is going to be extraordinarily cool. If any of you guys have seen the Model 10, they have like what I would call it looks like support struts in the head, and you can see down into the grass. Those are all filled now, and they're going to use a different stroke lab color. It's going to be gray instead of black. I prefer the black, but you got to change something to be relevant. And so those are their high MOI ones, and I like it because they have a very long sight line, and they do not twist. They really, really do not. Now, again, I also attribute it to the fact that it's back weighted, and I'm using that different kind of grip that's keeping me locked in. So I tend to like that. If I was looking at, so if you didn't like something that big, maybe the Model 7. The Model 7 would get you there. Now, if you wanted to go massively crazy, if you could find an old dock putter, it's like swinging a frying pan. But those things were massive. You just can't get away from that. And surprisingly, there's an X model that Golfworks had, but it's just a crazy orange color. I'm not a fan, and it's aluminum. But I would pretty much stay in that particular arena. Redding, California. Thank you, Jeremiah. Thank you for watching us. There's Kyle. What do you got, Kyle? He's got Tour X Flex looking to lower the ball flight, and I want to go to lighter. Irons are 1/2 inch. Swing weight feels a little heavy. Any thoughts? Well, there's right off the top, if you like the feel of the Tour irons, there's a 105, and you can get an X, and you would get lighter, same feel, same look, just lighter. The C Taper Light is another good one. However, if I understand it correctly, again, it is not like a C Taper in that the C Taper regular is for guys that are really get after it, but it's heavy. And in your case, it'd be in that 130, 135 gram range. And then it has a 110. The one I would consider is the dollar taper. All right, the dollar taper can come in a 110 flex as well, and you can get in the X, and I would look at something like that, staying in the KBS range. Do shafts have a recommended swing weight regardless of swing speed? No. All right, there's really all they do is as far as what they'll do is they'll give you a weight, whether 60, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, right, in drivers, and higher and lower in irons. And then they'll say, okay, this is a R flex, S flex, X flex, A flex, whatever. And in some of their manufacturers will say, we suggest you were in this swing range from 85 to 95 and 90 to 100 and jump in five mile per hour increments. And some will go wider. And then, so what they're trying to say is they have this overlap. So where you can, if you were really, really smooth, but you were a little bit, on that cusp, you might be able to use the next flex down and get better performance than using what your swing speed would say and using that particular flex. Again, that's all in the fitting. And the fitting, and that comes with your transition, your tempo, your transition, your release, and your transition down and your release. And those are all things to take into account. But as far as swing weight, no. There's Russ. Back into the high 50s again. Yeah, we might see that on Sunday. So I got to see about that. Cameron, how are you, sir? I like Stone Lick. I've played there a couple of times, Cameron, and uh, very nice layout. I think that place is very, very nice. And I really wanted to play there this year, just never had the time. We just got real busy. And I really, really liked it. There's a couple of holes that are, kind of funky downhill, and if you're a little too long, it gets away from you. But nothing beats number 18, an island green that it's a make or break kind of situation. It's on a par five, so you're either gonna hit a big club into it on the second shot, or you're gonna go for the precision shot really close to the water. So have fun. They make a mean sandwich too, so enjoy. All right, Mark, let's see. Has you ever reshafted a set of G10 irons? I heard they're a nightmare. From Belfast. Mark, Belfast. Thank you, sir. No, they're not a nightmare. All right, that's the second. That's the second. In the last week, I've been asked about reshafting pings as a whole. Now, why they say that's a nightmare is because the hossel's just off just ever so slightly, although for the most part, it's like a really small taper and then it gets really wide. And they have a collared ferrule, but in most collared ferrules, the collar portion is only like this. In a ping, it's like that. All right, and that's what throws people off. In reality, what you can get away with in a lot of cases is using a different adapter ferrule, and you can do that, or you can put in a shim and just make it really nice and tight. But no, they're not. The G10s, they're not that bad of a removal at all. And Belfast, thank you, Mark, for doing that. Robin and I were just talking about that trip. We want to go to the Northern Ireland area and see that. We saw Southern Ireland. We got Northern Ireland, then go across the water to Scotland, and just kind of take a 2-weeker for our 40th. George, 53 degrees in PA. Nice. 53, man, I tell you what, 53 coming from 70 is not so bad. 53 coming from 35, that's a whole different feel, man. Just take that extra club. Aaron, here we go. Fire's not near me, thank goodness. It was warm up north in the coastal, but good here in the desert. Weather is becoming perfect from the 110s down to the 70s, man. 110 to the 70s. Yeah, I'd say, right? Going from there. Holy cow, man. Well, good for you. I'm glad you're enjoying it. All right, let's keep going up here. Holy cow, guys. Here we go. Colin Miles. Some advice, please. T5 58-degree wedge has come to its life with new grooves gone, or grooves are now gone. Well, good for you that you've been able to wear a wedge out. That's awesome. No. Part company. The reason why I say that, Colin, is because with the new groove rules, all right, when you go to cut down and get to the depth that you're looking for, there is a super possibility that you will go illegal. And if you're playing to a single digits, I'm going to assume that you do play in regulated tournaments, and you really just don't want that. You would be better off to go get another, because the T5, they can now have T20s. That's how much it's been changed. The T20 has at least 3 sole grinds and in at least 3 different kinds of finishes: raw, what they'll call chrome, and then the blue. And they do have 58s. All right, I've got 3 56s sitting in a bag here waiting for somebody wanting a sandwich. And depending on how you swing, they also can come with the new Nippon Modus, and they'll have a wedge shaft, which actually makes the thing feel really good. You get a little snap into it. So it looks like you might be looking for a 58, sir. Okay. Does a heavier iron shaft mean more of an in to out swing path? No. Again, okay, we'll go back to the standard issue is, what's the best answer in golf? It depends. James, it depends. Oh, why? All right. I've seen where if you get into a heavier shaft, now again, you can go from being right in the groove to wanting to throw the weight forward to get the swing going, and it tends to go out to in. Okay. Now, again, if you were that's the depends part. Now, if you're a person that is really aggressive and you were finding yourself and you're swinging something that was light and you go to this, now all of a sudden you get right back here and you go, there's my club. Oh, wow, look at me go. And you could drop it right down into the slot. Again, depends on how and how that you would attack that particular club. All right, Cameron, TaylorMade response golf balls are where it's at. Okay, man. We'll have to see one of those one day. John Jenkins, any recommendations for replacement shaft for the Helium 40 gram? John, not to sound like a smart butt, but how about another Helium 40 grammer? If you really, really like it, they do make them, and the latest one, the black ones, look really cool. They used to be in a chrome look, but if you're looking to get away from that, I'll stop being a smart butt. And it depends on your pocketbook, and I'm going to say the name wrong, Mizuyaki. They make a 39-40 gram shaft that is truly very, very, very nice. High-end graphite, very nice made. It's a pretty good little shaft. If it's a little too much for the wallet, Acra makes a Acra I series. They make a 40 gram shaft as well, and it will probably be just a tad more flexible than the Helium. I think the Helium is plenty for what it is. It's actually for a 40 gram shaft. It has a really nice profile. The other ones will be the Mizuyaki will probably be the closest one, with the Acra coming in a close second. Okay, but that one will be the loosest one of the clan. But those are the two that come to mind directly. Well, James, thanks for showing up, buddy. If you got a question, just hit me up. Giraffe Man in Wales. Oh, well, I know what this is. Okay. What are your thoughts about the Adams CBM heads? Thinking of making single length with them. Well, so here's in just about any. So Adams in the day in their CB3s, their CB3s were really nice heads. They were really well made. They checked a lot of boxes. A lot of people liked them. Forge Club, rounded everywhere, just slight amount of offset, just strong enough to be playable. It was really good. However, here's where everything changes. And for guys looking to do this on single length really depends on the fact that your head weight is the same, i.e., everything being the same. So your head weight has to be one weight, your shafts will be one length, your grips will be the same. So you stand over top of it, it is the same. In order to do that, in particular, let's just say you pick the 7-iron, which is a 7 or 8 in the middle of the group. That means that you're going to have to grind off 7 grams of weight on the 9, and 14 on the wedge, and even more on the gap wedge. 7 grams is a lot of weight to grind. All right. And then going the other way, you're going to have to add 7 grams. You're going to get to a point where you just can't do it unless you really like looking at bulky lead tape. So if you're looking to play around just to see if you can do it, have at it. But if you're truly serious about going to single length, I don't recommend that, because the modifications are going to be so heavy that, number one, the clubs are going to look ugly. And the amount of weight that you add when you get to the far ends will be so much that you will start impacting the center of gravity. All right, you'll start impacting the center of gravity. Now, in some cases, that might not be so bad. And then you're going to have to start gapping them. All right, just to kind of give you an idea, where I believe it's Cobra, they get it's basically the same head, and they change the gaps in order to get the distances that you want. Where with Sean, and the upper end has more of a springy or high tech type of head, and down at the bottom where he dumbs them down a little bit, not nearly as springy, not nearly as launchy, that kind of stuff. But the loft angles are more traditional. So that's what I'm thinking, Bud. I hope that helps you out. What do you think of aftermarket shafts? I've seen some on tour. Yeah, James, and that's at the upper end, and there are some that are running 1,000. And there's even that one that the TXG guys did that was some crazy number above it. Now, everything in my opinion is bang for the buck. Is there something that makes them worth $600? Is it a newfangled processing process? Is it the graphite is at the upper tier that the cost per gram or per pound is just logarithmically different to do that? Is the science behind the new epoxy that's holding it together that much different? Is the profile the one that works for me? And last but not least, can my wallet handle it? All those are things that each person's got to answer themselves, right? However, the lion's share of most of the shafts, good, bad, or in between, mostly what would be called the upper tier shafts now, are running between the $300 and $400 mark, with the occasional $500 and $600, and that's about it. So, and when you see them on tour, and if you see them on tour, most of those guys aren't paying for that stuff. They're getting it so that it's a marketing thing. So when you see that orange rings on those shafts, that you're like, oh, look at that. I really like those. And that's where it gets. So take it as you will. I'm not going to say that they're bad, because they shouldn't be for $600, but it's a bang for the buck. Are you going to hit it? Is it the right, basically, is it the right profile for you? Is it the right weight for you? That kind of stuff. Here we go. We're going to find out. Get it. Let's see how we're doing. Dude, how come you are not on tour? That's all I want to know. Started indoor training last week. The numbers and the foresight surprised me. How you are probably the straightest hitting individual in Sweden. How are you not playing on the tour like this kind of stuff? Those kinds of numbers are like robotic, which is phenomenal, right? If you can control it, dude. I'm gonna see your picture. I'm gonna watch the European tour, and I'm gonna see your face on there one day. James wants to know I fit for lie angle. Well, it's the most unpopular way ever. No. What I do is, once we determine the right length of the club, that length is paramount first. Then I put some tape on the bottom, and I have you hit off a board. Now, the reality of it, to do it the precise way, I would have you stand on a piece of plywood and paint it, and have you hit a board off or a ball off of it, and then watch where your mark would be. Some people will put a plexiglass square on top of the hitting surface, and it's all of about, 1/8 of an inch thick. And I do that as well. And then see where you're hitting. And people, oh, you're going to be off by the 1/8 inch. Well, not necessarily, because by that particular time in the swing, most people, if I was to show you mine, if my board is this long, I've got a set of marks this long. So they're all, they can be all over the map. Now, another way of doing it is putting a line on the golf ball and hitting it, and then seeing where the line is. And based on where it's at, will tell you, if you're out this much, you need to come down. But then there's a measuring. Well, is this 1 degree? Is this 2 degrees? Is this 3 degrees? Who knows? On the sole, if that's the middle, if I come a 1/4 inch or a 1/2 inch, I know what I have to bend them to in order to get you into the middle. There you go. But you've always been a guy that's a little bit more aggressive, so going to C2, that's a little bit different. But you've got those other clubs, though, so that might not be too bad. There you go. That's what we're looking for. That seems to be the Sim Max seems to be a tour favorite, right? It seems to be a tour favorite. So I think you'll like that for sure. Uh-oh, I see my buddy. I see Unk coming up here. Hold on. Camellia, most of the golf courses in the place where I live are with mountain scenery. That would be phenomenal. I live around 9, but only 3 are public. Most of them do events on the weekdays and open to the general public. Well, good for you, sir. Mountain scenery would be cool. I'm just sure it's probably one of the more beautiful places to see down in there. Like to see it. There's Unk. What do you say, buddy? We're talking about another one if Scotty hasn't got to you. Uh-oh. That was the Mrs. McGolf saying we are at our end. Alrighty. Golf is banned in England. Daggone it. I hate that for you guys. No junior golf driver, Lorinda, with Sean's way you want to go. You will yeah, and you're right. Bendable hosels aren't the norm for anything but irons, but Washawn has engineered it into his design, so they are meant to be bendable. More so for loft, but they will go a couple degrees for lie angle. All right, Syracuse. Does a shifter shaft work? Yes, for the most part. That the answer would be yes. Dave's in from Michigan. Okay, guys, I'm getting down to the end. I'm gonna get 2 more here, and then we'll call it done. Does Graphaloy make biometrics prototype shafts anymore? It's similar to Bubba Watson used in his ping driver. I am not aware that they do anymore. All what you see are specifically made for him, specifically in the pink. I've not seen a driver shaft, so there you go. All right, Hack Mac, 6'5", thinking about extending 1.5 inches. Standard looks like duck and cover, but pretty accurate. What do you think? Too much chance to break. Greetings from Germany. Holy cow, Germany. Okay, it's 6'5", right? 1.5 inches, depending on where you're at right this very moment, may be too much. All right. People at around normally the lengths of clubs are made for guys that are around 6'4" or 6 foot. However, at 6'4", your arms start getting longer, so that even the standard length sometimes can work for you. So I would not necessarily think 1.5 inches unless you got short hands, right? If you got shorter arms. But if you're in the sleeve length of, that 39, 40-inch, maybe even more, then maybe consider only going into 1 inch and then choking down some and trying that. Okay, guys, I'm at the end of the time frame. I got to go, and I know there's a couple more, but thank you guys for checking around. Look, we went all around the world again today, all over the United States. That's been phenomenal. Don't forget, tomorrow, 7 o'clock, I've got my golf video, or the video on YouTube's coming out. Please take a look. Like and subscribe this one if you would. And then that way we can, we get more recognition and we get float to the top a little bit more. And guys, let me get to it. As always, let's see your scores go low.